Welcome back to Wrestling Impact. I'm glad you're here, because what we are about to break down is one of the most chaotic, most emotionally loaded, most unpredictable nights in recent Smackdown history. If you thought you understood where this story was going, the Samoan Werewolf just buried those assumptions under a pile of production equipment. Because Jacob Fatu is back. And the entire landscape of Friday night just shifted. Let's go back. Let's go all the way back to where this fire was first lit. Because to understand January 9, 2026 in Berlin, you have to understand October 17, 2025. The date was circled. The SmackDown general manager Nick Aldis had made the announcement that would make the whole locker room stand at attention. Jacob Fatu and Drew McIntyre would go one-on-one in the main event. The winner? The number one contender for Cody Rhodes and the undisputed WWE Championship. That's a headline match. That is the kind of bout that gets your blood moving just reading it on paper. The Samoan Werewolf raw, feral, completely uncontrollable against the Scottish psychopath, a man who had been sliding into one of the most compelling shades of grey that SmackDown had ever produced. Fans were ready. The wrestling world was ready. Jacob Fatu never made it to the ring. Instead, WWE cameras cut to the backstage area, and what they found sent a genuine shockwave through every arena watching. There was Jacob Fatu, collapsed underneath production equipment, his mouth a mess of blood, and most grotesque of all, several of his teeth scattered across the cold concrete floor. The arena went silent. Commentators struggled to form sentences. And somewhere in the crowd, a fan held up a sign that simply read, "Who did this?" That question hung over SmackDown for months. Drew McIntyre, the most obvious suspect given the circumstances, came out and denied everything. And here's the thing about McIntyre's denial: it wasn't the snarling, self-satisfied confession of a villain celebrating a dirty win. He was defensive, almost offended. Which, knowing Drew, either means he genuinely didn't do it, or he's an even better actor than anyone gave him credit for. He loves to gloat. He loves to get in people's faces and let them know exactly what he did and why. The man who would later low-blow Cody Rhodes in front of a referee without blinking twice is not a man who hides his work. So if he did attack Fatu that night, why deny it? Why pass up the chance to crow about it? Meanwhile, Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre's rivalry reignited with a vengeance. Their Saturday night's main event encounter became one of the most layered chapters in their long war, with Rhodes retaining the championship via a DDT onto the title belt, a moment that showed a new, desperate edge to the American Nightmare. Cody had always been the hero, the blue-eyed babyface, the son of a legendary father trying to complete the story. But that night, he bent the rules just enough to make you wonder. Just enough to plant a seed of doubt. And that seed? Jacob Fatu would water it in Berlin. The mystery attacker was never definitively revealed. Theories ran wild. Was it Solo Sikoa, Fatu's former bloodline brother and bitter enemy, trying to eliminate his most dangerous rival before Fatu could seize a title and surpass him? Was it Aleister Black, the enigmatic darkness creeping through SmackDown like fog, whose violence carries no loyalty and no explanation? Was it someone else entirely, a hidden player whose motive was still waiting to be revealed? The internet burned through every possibility. Forums ran hot. Podcasters laid out conspiracy boards. And every single week Fatu was absent, the question grew louder. Where is the Samoan Werewolf? The answer came on January 9 in Berlin. And it came wearing a hood. Let me paint you the scene. The 3 stages of hell is already delivering. Stage 1, a standard singles match, doesn't mess around. McIntyre ends it with a low blow the referee conveniently doesn't see, followed by the Claymore Kick. 1 fall to the Scottish psychopath. The crowd is split between groans and shouts. Cody's resilience had already been legendary, but to see him pinned that fast, especially like that, stings. Stage 2, falls count anywhere, is a brawl that spills through the arena like a car crash in slow motion. It ends with Rhodes hammering McIntyre through the announcer's desk with a crossroads, evening the score. 1 fall apiece. And then comes the steel cage. There are few structures in professional wrestling as viscerally perfect as the steel cage. It traps 2 men. It removes escape routes. It forces a story to its inevitable conclusion, one man climbing out or walking through the door while the other fails to stop him. The walls close in. The crowd leans forward. And in Berlin, Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes tore into each other with the kind of intensity that only comes from 2 people who have been building towards something for a very long time. The match hit heights. Genuinely great sequences, spots that earned gasps from 20,000 people, the kind of physical storytelling that reminds you why you fell in love with this art form in the first place. And then McIntyre started dragging himself toward the cage door, sensing the moment, and a hooded figure appeared on the outside. The referee went down. The hood came off. In the Uber Arena, a building full of German wrestling fans who have seen plenty absolutely lost their minds. Jacob Fatu, the Samoan Werewolf, teeth intact and fury unrestrained, was standing at that cage door like a force of nature that had been penned up for 3 months. McIntyre's face, you could see it even from the broadcast cameras, crumpled into something between shock and terror. The man who had allegedly put Fatu on the shelf, the man whose denial had never quite silenced the suspicion, was now staring directly into the consequence of his potential actions. And here is where the story becomes genuinely brilliant. Because Fatu wasn't there to help Drew McIntyre. He wasn't there to align with anyone. He turned, and he unleashed everything on Cody Rhodes. The crowd audibly groaned at the interference. It felt, for half a second, like Jacob Fatu was about to become someone else's tool, another faction accessory, another hired gun for a villain. And then the reality of it landed. Fatu was operating on his own axis entirely. He wasn't picking sides. He was picking targets. Both men had something to do with why he'd been gone for 3 months. Whether McIntyre threw the blow that knocked his teeth out backstage, or whether it was Rhodes or someone Rhodes had a connection to, Fatu's answer was the same. Everyone bleeds. Everyone pays. In the chaos of Fatu annihilating Rhodes in the corner of that cage, Drew McIntyre found the door. He crawled. He dragged himself through. His hands hit the arena floor outside the cage, and the referee, already struggling to recover, counted it. 1, 2, 3, and the bell rang. Drew McIntyre is the new undisputed WWE Champion. There is something almost poetic about it, and something almost accidental, and the combination of those two things is what makes it so compelling. McIntyre didn't beat Cody Rhodes clean. He needed 3 stages of creative officiating and the volcanic return of a Samoan werewolf who wasn't even trying to crown him. Fatu turned away from the door. Fatu fixated on Rhodes. And in that gap, that single, breathless gap, Drew crawled to his destiny. For McIntyre, this is the culmination of 2 brutal years. Think about what this man has endured at the narrative level. The injury, the long road back, the title match that was taken from him at the worst possible moment. The months of being cast as the villain whose suffering you weren't supposed to sympathize with, even as he kept showing you wounds that were very real. Every Smackdown fan who had been screaming that Drew deserved his moment in Berlin on January 9th, they got it. You could argue about the manner. You could debate the method. But the belt is around his waist, and the belt belongs there. Now here's what's fascinating about Jacob Fatu's position coming out of this. He is not the new champion, but in some ways, he walked out of that cage with more momentum than anyone else in the building. Think about the optics. The man returns from a 3-month absence, storms the most important match on SmackDown, hurts both competitors, indirectly determines the title change, and then stands in the rubble of Berlin looking absolutely satisfied with the destruction he caused. That's not a supporting character. That's a main event player operating outside the usual rules of the game. WWE clearly understands what they have in Jacob Fatu. WrestleMania season is here. The Royal Rumble is weeks away. The path to WrestleMania 42 is being laid out in real time. And at the center of SmackDown's most explosive story, you've got a brand new champion who won under controversial circumstances, a former champion who will want his rematch, and a man-shaped wildfire who hasn't explained himself to anyone and doesn't appear to feel any obligation to do so. Who attacked Jacob Fatu backstage in October? That question is still unanswered. And now that Fatu has blown up the entire title picture, whoever the real culprit was has to be sitting somewhere in the back or at home, very aware that the Samoan Werewolf is now in the middle of everything. There is no safe distance. There is no hiding behind a championship match or an alliance. When Fatu finds out who put him under the production equipment and scattered his teeth across the concrete floor, the response is going to be something we talk about for a very long time. And Drew McIntyre? The man who has the title, who may or may not be responsible for the attack, who denied it all while benefiting from it anyway. He is the undisputed WWE Champion. He should be celebrating. He should be soaking in the moment he has spent 2 years earning back. But he knows. Somewhere deep in that relentlessly driven Scottish heart of his, he knows that the debt hasn't been settled. Fatu didn't turn away because he forgave anyone. Fatu turned away because the opportunity presented itself, and because the Samoan Werewolf is patient in the way that genuinely dangerous things are patient. He'll wait. He'll circle. And when the moment is right, he'll make his case for the championship in a way that nobody will be able to ignore. This is SmackDown in 2026. This is WrestleMania season. This is the story we were all hoping for without knowing exactly what it would look like. Drew McIntyre is champion. Jacob Fatu is unresolved. Cody Rhodes is hunting. And we are all locked in a steel cage of our own, unable to look away. If this video got you fired up the way the story gets us fired up here at Wrestling Impact, drop a comment below and tell us, do you think Drew McIntyre attacked Jacob Fatu backstage? And with WrestleMania season approaching, who do you want to see challenge for that title? We want your takes, your theories, your predictions. Hit that like button if you want us to keep breaking down every chapter of this story as it unfolds. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is exactly the kind of content we deliver every single week. We are just getting started.